How close do we need to?
I'll do.
All right. How close do we need to hold these? Is this you guys can hear me? We're good. All right. All right. Great. Hello, everybody out there. Yeah. So my name is Drew Herman with K2 Systems. I'm on the commercial product management side, and we are excited today to have two members of Krinner. Krinner USA here with, we have Sharon Varela and Stephen Griggs.
We're happy to be here.
Glad you guys could join. All right, great. Yeah, so we recently partnered up to perform some new engineering on our ground mount system, 3-inch ground mount, and now have the ability to utilize ground screws thanks to you guys, so I appreciate that. And yeah, so we're excited we're not launching it, we've had a 3-inch ground mount for a while, but it's exciting now. We were kind of stuck in the past where installers had to use concrete cast in place or different foundation methods, ballasted methods, but now we have the ability to use ground screws, and yeah, excited about it.
Yeah, well, we're really happy to partner with you guys and be spec'd on your system. It's going to open up this to a lot more installers and DIYers and people looking for an alternative foundation. So yes. Ground screws are perfect for that.
Yes, and I've installed a lot of these, so I know the whole process of having to go to a site, wait for concrete to cure, come off site, come back. So yes, the preferred method is the ground screw for sure. So what is it? Yeah, can you guys give me a little bit of background of where you come from in the industry?
Yeah, so Krinner was founded. It's a German company out of Strauskirchen, Germany, close to Munich.
Yeah.
And Klaus Krinner, he invented the ground screw. He actually started the company. It was a Christmas tree stand, and you can find the Krinner Christmas tree stands, I think, on eBay and all over, and they're like state-of-the-art Christmas tree stands. Anyhow, there's this whole innovation lab there on the property, and that's where the ground screw was born from Klaus Krinner, pardon me, and then from there it was been used widely in Europe. So it's definitely a family company, and you get that feeling when you're there in Germany.
That's kind of similar to our beginnings, right? So we have K2 Systems, German-born company, and we've been in the U.S. now since 2012. And actually, we're celebrating 20 years of K2 Systems now. Yes, since 2004, now in 2024, 20 years of K2. So yeah, we're familiar with the German parent company and now expanding into the U.S. So started out as a Christmas tree stands.
Yeah. So they've been pounding this out and doing screws all over Europe. And in about 2020, now Krinner isn't new. I said that they started in the early 90s. But in about 2020, that's when they really started our push in North America. So we were brought on, and so Krinner's not a new name, but it's kind of new. So we've been having to educate everybody. They've heard about it. They may have seen one in a showroom or something. But like most things, like foundation solutions, it's in the ground, so you don't see it. So somebody kind of has to tell you about it. You have to do a little bit of research. So this is such a wonderful opportunity for you guys to be like, hey, ground screw, you know about it, but a lot of people don't.
Right, yeah. A lot of times you just see a little bit of a head poking through and you're like, what is going on there? So it's nice, we have one here. This is one of the Krinner ground screws. So it's nice to see how it looks, what it's going to look like underground. And this is it's a 4.5-inch model, right? Yep. Diameter that.
14, 1600.
Yep. Marries perfectly with our 3-inch ground mount. So how about personally, how did you guys get into foundation?
Well, as you can imagine, it's not like there's a lot of people with a lot of experience with ground screws, right? And so when they were looking for some people, we both had a pretty keen interest in the renewables world, renewable field. Steve's been in sales for forever, and I have as well. But really, it was Steve who just fell in love with this product and brought him on. And with his years of entrepreneurship and sales, he just said, "This is just so exciting. I really want to be a part of it." And I had serious, and I'm sure this isn't a current saying anymore, but I had serious FOMO, and I really wanted to get involved. And told them I wanted to learn everything about the ground screw.
Yes.
And
if you're any of our installers out there or project managers out there, understand that completely, because I come from the install world, right? I was an installer for 10 years before coming to K2, and so we can understand the excitement. You hear ground screws, you see ground screws, and it depends on the size of the system, right? But it'll turn a 2 or 3 day job into a day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I talk to installers every day, and it's always telling them it's a learning process. Once you get it, you get it. And I've had guys come back to me and they say, "Hey, I used to be concrete and pier. Now that I know how to do the screw, I'm never going back." So it's a game changer for sure.
It takes a day to get it down, after running a machine. So we can get into this a little bit later, but I've installed them with Bobcats, right? It's skid steers, and it does take a little bit of finesse. But once you get it down, it's like really.
Exactly. And again, I tell the guys this all the time. It's like getting the right tools for the toolbox. Once you get it figured out, once you know how to put it in, you got it. Guys will use skid steer, Mini X. Krinner, we also manufacture our own line of equipment. So, we have track equipment, handheld equipment. So, it's truly, the screw is, it sounds crazy, but when I first started with them, I was like, I didn't quite get it. But now that I've been doing it, it truly has been amazing.
Yeah.
I love it.
It is. It's such a simple idea that, we use screws for everything, and
then
let's just make it big.
Right. It is such a simple idea, like you said. Before we even get any deeper, what is a ground screw and how do they work? And let's.
I tell the guys, the people that I'm selling them to, I said it's like a screw on steroids, basically.
Yeah.
And with this particular screw, it has the opening at the bottom, or at the top, sorry, where once after they install it, it's usually about 3 inches above embedment. They drop the pipe down, and the good thing about the screw, especially with this one, and I like the fact that our diameter opening up the top is 4.5, is the fact that even if the guys don't get it in exactly plumb and vertical, you got a little bit of play inside the screw to make the adjustments with your pipe.
With the set screws, right? Yes.
Correct.
Yeah. So, just to add on to that, so the ground screw is the foundation, obviously, into the ground, and then with our ground mount system, K2 Systems, we offer a 3-inch ground mount system. So when I say 3-inch, it's Schedule 40, 3-inch steel pipe, galvanized pipe, and that is going to be inserted directly into the ground screw. So there's no more top adapter box or screw or bolts and nuts that have to be adapted. You put the pipe right into the screw.
Most guys will bottom it out until it bottoms at the bottom of the screw, and then they make their adjustments if they have to.
Yep, and then it's
most guys are trying to go plumb and vertical.
Right.
But in case they're off a little bit, you got that play within the bottom of the opening of the screw.
Right. It's a little bit wider than our 3-inch pipe, a 3-inch out OD pipe. So then you have 4 set screws that we're attaching to the pipe to hold it in place. Right?
When we originally started with the screw, we were 3 set screws, but we noticed that when installing the screw, you were getting too much stress on one of the set screws. So with one of our other partners, we decided, hey, let's try 4. So when you're installing it, it's the torque that you're putting on the screws evenly placed throughout the top. And that way, we were not having any issues with set screw problems. So it's definitely been Krinner's put the money in it, research everything.
Yeah. If you hold this thing, if you pick it up, this is a beefy. This is a thick boy. Yeah. And I like the idea of having 4 set screws versus 3. It's not going to take any longer than you're already saving so much time by installing these anyway.
Yeah, when you're installing it, you're putting the pressure evenly around the screw. With the 3 set screws, you're putting pressure more on one of those set screws, and then that's where you have problems.
So, how did Krinner, so we went a little bit into the background of the Christmas tree stands, and then before we started here, we were talking a little bit about the construction screws. So can you kind of give us a progression of, because it didn't start out as solar dedicated screws, so I guess we can go through some of your product line, but I want to kind of understand the progression of how you guys got to starting to produce solar dedicated screws.
Yeah, well, I'll talk a little bit about the solar screws. So it was their original idea in Germany for the solar screws. And when you fly into Germany, in Europe, you just see these beautiful solar fields all dotted amongst the beautiful green, countryside. So solar is very popular in Europe, solar fields. So they spent a lot of time with all of their partners, their country partners, to take that feedback. They have yearly partner meetings, get a lot of feedback, a lot of powwow, discussion time, get what's working in Switzerland, what's working in Italy, and make those changes, because we do have the innovation lab. So it's very hands-on. When they came to North America, we came with the product line that we thought would work here, and from there we've been taking a lot of feedback. We've been bringing it back to Germany. Case in point, 3-set screws, 4-set screws, and then moving into the construction line, understanding that there was other certifications that were required. So then there was other things that we needed to do. I'll let Steve talk a little bit about the construction line, because that's a little more intense.
Yeah, on the construction side, Krinner decided, you know what, we're going to need ICC for that screw, just because people are putting cabins, homes, a lot of weight, and not to say that solar.
We're not just talking about a separate structure now.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a residence or yeah.
They that's one good thing I like about Krinner. They went out and spent the money to get the ICC. We just finished it, and it's for our fixed link M series screws. So it will be ICC certified in 1600 millimeter, 2100, and 3100. In our M76.
Those are the lengths, right? Yeah.
Correct. Yes, sir. In our M76 and M114. So it's basically M114 would be similar to this. It'll just have a welded plate on the bottom of the screw, and it'll be thicker. So our solar screws are 3.6 millimeter thickness. Our new ICC screw for M series for construction will be 5 millimeter thick.
Okay. And then it sounds real similar to what we do at K2 Systems. So we have a dedicated, we have our sales staff that will get in the field, but we have a dedicated training team as well, and customer support that will get in the field, get VOC, get feedback from the installer, some voice of customer, and then bring that to our PD team, like you guys were saying with the screws, and then that's how we can innovate and make sure we're building something that the installer actually wants to use. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we have so many stories, because we've essentially been boots on the ground everywhere, big, small, and in between. And some of my favorite experiences have been with the DIYers, who we're literally talking them through a whole project and seeing how they've done it, and they're selling them a bundle of like 6 or 9 screws. And they've created something with a racking system and the solar panels and the screws that they were able to just go to their local distributor, get it all, and then be able to talk to whoever they needed to talk to, and they have this functional system. It's been a lot of fun and very educational, and we take every bit of feedback back to our directors, and we make changes from there.
This was in Anderson, Texas, and he was a DIYer, and he's like, I put up my first ground mount system, and I'm going to put up a second one. So I took him the screws, because he's like, hey, can you help me out? I'm like, yeah, no problem. Took him the screws. He rented one of our Carry 20 handheld units to install them, and he's
what is that? Can you give us some details? Is that a gas powered or?
No, it's electric. Yeah. And then we place those units. We've actually started a consignment program with a lot of our distribution partners, where we put a Carry 20 in their location, and then we work out a deal where we give them a percentage of the rental, and we handle the rental, but the customer, like anybody can walk in, an installer that says, hey, I'm primarily roof, I did get a ground mount, I'm interested in putting it in, but I don't want to buy a lot of equipment to do a ground mount, because we don't do that many in a year. So the electric handheld, we call it a Carry 20, is good when you're doing, I would say, small resi from say 4 screws to 20 screws.
Yeah.
And that's about as far as we go with it. We also have a hex tool you can buy or rent. We loan that out as well. So
the hex tool is the adapter you're talking about that would go onto a skid steer.
Skid steer or a Mini X.
Yes, or a Mini X, right? Yep. That's how I've primarily done it. But I love that sentiment of just offering this to distribution so that the installer has that as an option.
We've actually had some installers come back and they'll say, hey, I like the unit so much I'm going to buy one.
Yes.
As opposed to renting it. So I mean, it's definitely, Krinner is trying to make it a little bit easier for the installer.
Yeah, because where I was going with that is a lot of times, or not a lot of times, but I have heard installers sometimes back away from doing a ground mount, or they'll contract it out, and then it's more money. It takes a little bit more time. There are companies out there that are doing that, but it leaves it in the installer's hands versus having to contract it out to somebody. You might trust their work. You don't know kind of what they're doing on the foundation side, the substructure side. So having that ability to get an adapter or get a tool that's going to help them do the job is awesome. Yeah.
And so you just get on our system, find one at one of the distribution partners where you would get your K2 racking system, go get everything ordered, make sure the machine is ready, and they'll have it ready for you. So that's been really exciting because it just lets people kind of find everything, order everything online, and then go to the store and pick it all up.
Yep. And that's what we've been doing with K2 as well, is making sure we have everything that the installer is going to need through distribution. Even some of these distributors now will be stocking Schedule 40. I've noticed, but not that that's hard to find. Even if that is a user-supplied, an installer-supplied product, you can easily find that anywhere at any steel yard. So yeah, let's go through. So we talked a little bit about what the screws are. So what would be, or where would these excel, like applications in the field? Like, are there any challenges that installers or any installation techniques that installers should keep in mind?
Well, and that's something that we also are working on with our installation network, our certified Krinner installers. So we have a lot.
So you guys do have like a Krinner certified program?
Yeah.
Yep,
we do, so that we can make sure that people have the opportunity to get their screws installed by somebody somewhere, wherever they're at.
Yeah. We have something similar, just to plug at K2 Pro certified. So we have this similar where you have online modules. I don't know how you guys do yours. It's a lot of on-site training as well, but we have learning modules online where installers can go through these subjects at their own pace, and then when they're ready, we'll have one of our dedicated trainers come out on site. But yeah, sorry to cut you off. But
no, that's amazing.
No, we with our certified Krinner installer, we saw a need that, in some cases, sometimes the installer didn't, he was not interested, so he was looking for a sub. He wanted to do Krinner screws, but he's like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. So we've we're talking about Maine, we've set up 2, I guess you would say, Krinner installer subs that work with our distribution partners that'll come in there, and they have for example, one of our customers, Anchor Point, he has a KRD 30, so he has the ability to DTH, rock hammer drill, put the screw in, install it for you if you need it. And that's a service we throw out there in case the customer, because I don't know so much that he can use an electric handheld in Maine just because it's a 7-foot long screw.
Right.
Might be a little bit difficult, maybe challenging. Not to say you couldn't do it, but in some cases we'll bring in one of our sub partners and say, hey, if you need some holes drilled, we can help you.
Yep. So let's get into a little bit about the site conditions. And so you mentioned a 7-foot screw, right, in Maine. So yeah, can you give us a little bit more detail about so the soil classifications I know is one factor that needs to be kept in mind when installing screws: geographic location, wind loads, snow loads. Could you speak to some of those details that the installer would have to keep in mind?
I know on like, for example, with the K2 system, it's when they're speccing the screw, or when the screw is actually specced, it will be based on the soil class for that area.
Yeah.
So let's just say, for an example, when you're down south, let's say in Texas, you're more than likely going to be specced on a 63-inch. Let's say it's a G114 by 1600. But if you're going to go up to the northeast, like in Maine, because of your frost depth, you've got to get those helices below the frost depth so you don't have any upheaving. You're going to be always on a 2100 millimeter screw or 83-inch length screw. So a lot of times the installer, and this is one thing that we do when we sell the screws, whether it be with our partners or to the installer, to the customer trying to install the screw, is, hey, you need to know what you're going into. You know, we recommend you do a pre-drill test, check and see, because, you know, I'd love to rent you an electric handheld, but if it can't work, you're going to need something that can get through the rock, so that you got to pre-drill your rock so the screw can go in. Because the screw can get through the tip, it's got a pointed tip, can get through some, it can break through some rock.
Yep.
When it's hard rock and you hit refusal, it's going to stop, so you're going to have to pre-drill it the rest.
That's what I love about the flexibility about these ground screws. Just as an anecdote, when I was installing in New York, a lot of times what we would do is we did the old school method of digging a hole out and then pouring concrete. It wasn't until, so I did some installs in Oregon as well. Was a foreman for 10 years before coming to K2, and those installs we switched to doing ground screws, and it was like night and day, like we spoke about earlier, just the time on site, the labor cost. But in New York, what we would do is dig out with a mini excavator, dig a 2-foot by 4-foot hole. Sometimes, I think we even went down to 5 feet sometimes, just to get below the frost depth in something like Adirondacks, more northern New York. And we tried to use an auger, sometimes an auger bit on a skid steer, but a lot of times we found just using a mini X would be better, because you can kind of dig some of that rock out. But that's what I love about the screws, is that they're flexible, they're agile, you can kind of maneuver them. If you hit at one point, you could try, I don't know, like 12 inches? What is like a minimum that you should?
I know in some cases they can move it over 12 inches. Sometimes it just depends. So they'll just move it over a little bit and then try again.
Yeah.
And then
it goes in.
Yep. That's the beauty. You can take it out and you can move it.
Yep.
And it's not stuck there forever.
Versus digging a bigger hole and then pouring more concrete.
But like a lot of our installer partners up in the Northeast, they'll buy the equipment that has, like, whether it's our equipment or if it's some equipment they buy from another company that can do down the hole rock hammer drilling, they'll do that, and they like it because it's a smaller footprint when it's doing that drilling, so the screw can go in. You know, I had a conversation with a company that was doing driven pile, and he's like, when we hit refusal, we're done. You know, we got to back it out, and it's like the DTH requirement for that is huge. Same thing with helicals.
Yeah, that's like I said earlier. That's why I love these things. They're agile. You can maneuver them a little bit more than you would with a pile driven or a concrete. Yeah.
It's a nice complement to what people are doing, and it's another option, so they don't have to leave and redo the whole job. They know what they're going to do. They know what the next step is going to be.
Yeah.
So it's a very versatile product, and it performs very well.
It was more kind of a foundation type show, and the helical people were like, oh, it was ground screw, blah, blah, blah. But actually, we've just recently partnered with a company. I'm not allowed to say it yet, but we've partnered with a helical company that he basically told me, he goes, Steve, every time we go down and we hit rock, we back out, we leave the site, because there's just no way they can't do it. So they were looking for an option, and the ground screw was that option to get through the rock.
It's really universal in that sense. Like, you can use helicals in some areas, some in the Northeast. It's not a good idea. Like, I know even in Maine, like we were talking about earlier, we had an installer that was using ground screws, and in the next to a mountain, a real rocky area, but was able to do it with the ground screws because there was no other option. Like, you couldn't use helicals, couldn't use piles.
So I always tell the We joke around. I said, I'm either your brother or I guess you call me your sister. So he likes it. I mean, he's like, yeah. Now we have that option. If we can't use the helical, we'll use the ground.
Yeah.
So it's definitely it's a game changer for sure.
Yeah.
It gets the job done.
Yes. Yeah. Gets the job done quicker. Gets the installers off site in a day. I mean, depending on the job size, but you don't have to wait for concrete to cure like I always had to. So we spoke about it a little bit. What are some of the other products or services that Krinner offers? So we went through. You have the Krinner Connect, is what it was called.
Connect. Yeah. So it is our online portal where you can rent the machines, our Carry 20. But
what is that KR20 again? I know it's. Can you give us a little bit more detail about the
Carry 20 is our electric handheld unit.
Yeah.
So
And
that machine
is it like the same thing you would use for an auger, like a?
similar but a little bit different. Ours has
Okay.
a connection tool that goes on the bottom of it that fits over the top part of the screw. It kind of hugs it.
Is that a one-man job or?
It can be a one-man
Yeah.
job. We tell it's good to be two,
Yeah.
to be on the safe side, but a one-man can do it. I actually had a gentleman who is 92 years old. sent
Oh,
me a
wow.
Picture that he actually put in a screw. It was our G76 screw.
Wow.
So it was like, hey man, so I tell people when they say, Steve, is this doable? I'm like, hey, a 92-year-old guy can put a screw in the ground. Anybody can put a screw in the ground.
Yeah.
it's really cool because it'll measure like the torque data, the locations where the screw was installed, and the installer can get that data if they need it, and it's saved on our Krinner Connect in our
Okay.
cloud. But also we have a smart cap on our other machinery.
Yeah, we have on our track system, we have what's called a docky kit. Once you turn the docky kit on, the docky kit can actually GPS each screw in. It can measure the torque as you're going in. It records it, saves it to our cloud, which is a Krinner Connect. And then if you have an AHJ that says, hey, can I see this report for screw 1? I want to see the report for screw 1, screw 10. It just depends on how many screws. If they're asking for it, then you can actually pull up the torque report and say, here you go.
Oh wow, that's
Now with solar, it's not so much that you have to record torque because we're
Yeah,
doing
yeah.
it based on assumptions, but you have that option even with our Carry 20 with a smart cap, it has the option to record the torque when you're installing the screw.
That's awesome. Because I had so I've done some jobs where had to record, take photos of pull tests, shear and uplift. And I guess if you were able to show an AHJ that it went in with the spec torque, that you might be able to eliminate having to do those tests. Yeah.
That's another thing. I don't know if we brought that up, but Krinner also we have equipment. We're kind of strategizing how we're going to do it, but we have pull test equipment. So if a customer or if a client said, a K2 client said, hey Steve, we are being required to pull test. We do have the ability to rent them the equipment. They could do pull testing, as well. So that is something, and I'm working with our director to potentially maybe put some units across the country so they're easily accessible. Right now we stock one in California and one in Texas.
It's standard to do pull testing in Germany, so
Yeah.
that's why we have very good equipment there that we really haven't been asked a lot
Yeah.
that it's been required, but if we are asked, we can provide them.
I know that the installation I was talking about was in Portland, Oregon, where it's a very strict AHJ, very strict inspections. But yeah, I could see that maybe some inspectors wouldn't even understand, because screws are kind of newer. I mean, they've been around for other industries, but for solar, yeah, they're the way to go now. But yeah, they're kind of on the newer end.
It's changing. Like I say, in the years that I've been with Krinner, literally I've had maybe 4 to 6 AHJs require a pull test.
Yeah.
So it's I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. It does, but it's very rare. Very rare. So actually, I gotta sometimes dust the dust off of our TP100.
I know, yeah.
House,
That can be a little bit of a challenge too, because when I tried to do my first pull test, you have to have something to leverage off of. So if an installer doesn't know how to do that, I mean, do you guys offer instructions or trainings? Yeah. Great.
And it basically can walk in right through. And we even have a computer software that goes with their meter. So as he's pulling it, it registers it. So then he can show that data
Got
to
it.
the AHJ if
That's
it's
great.
required.
Nice. And then you said you also offer an adapter for skid steers and mini X's as well. And all of this is found on your website then, or?
Well, most everything, when we're starting to talk about the specialized equipment, Steve and I are kind of the eyes and ears for Krinner. So primarily we want everybody to contact us,
Yeah.
and we'll tell them what we have available and where. But if they need descriptions of what Krinner just produces, it's all on our website.
All right. Great. Yeah, so did you guys have any other, questions for me, or any? Because I wanted to just mention that we have the new 3-inch ground mount. We're utilizing your screws. Wanted to get a little background from you guys on where you guys are coming from personally, where Krinner has come from, and then it's just the progression into the solar field here. And yeah, if you guys wanted to end this with something, or where do you guys see the future of Krinner going?
I'm really excited. Obviously, the solar screws have to be a part of a racking system, right? And so the racking system has to have some recommendations or options for their customers. And so it's very exciting to be partnered with you guys, because it's much easier for your sales team to say, oh, well, here's a few options for you, rather than us kind of coming up from behind and saying, hey, did you buy a racking system? Do you need a screw? So it's a wonderful partnership, because we can work together, and then you guys already have this, on the top of your tongue, your sales team. Why don't you try a ground screw?
Yeah.
So it's exciting for us. Because we do the rah-rah show all over the country.
Yeah.
But sometimes we're coming in after the fact, and somebody will say, darn it, I wish I would have known about the ground screw.
I know.
I wish I would have known that. So we really see the solar part growing. We see the DIYers really jumping in, and
Yeah, if you got a 92-year-old man that can install it by himself.
it's exciting. It's a very exciting.
Our competition is, we have screws in California, we have screws in Texas, we have screws in Canada, and we're also looking potentially, starting to dip our toes into Latin America and start putting some screws down there as well. So we're busy, and we see a lot of growth, and we see a lot of opportunity, and with K2 we definitely are excited to move forward with you folks.
Yeah. Awesome. Any parting thoughts on the, I guess I should have mentioned this from the beginning, but we're here at RE Plus, right? And so we have some of your ground screws out there on the floor, showing them off on a very...
Y'all did a great job. It looks fantastic.
Yeah.
No.
So,
I've seen the screws put in guitar stands.
yep, okay.
I've seen them just barely like this, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
and I'm always
Yeah.
kind of cringing, because I'm like, please don't fall over, because this will get somebody. But no, the way you guys have it set up is it's amazing.
What I was going to say is, it's kind of like a jerry-rigged setup, but really, it looks like it's meant for the screws. Our VP of products, Brett, went out to just a depot, I think, and found something that worked. But what I was getting at is, everybody that comes by the booth, it's like a showpiece. Everybody they see it and they're like, oh, I want to go touch that. I want to go see what's going on there. And so it's great to start a conversation up. And we're showing our new ground mount too. We're excited to partner with Krinner. We got that. We have a new engineering letter on our ground mount system that we've offered a 3-inch ground mount for a little while now, but now we're excited to a few things. We've now bumped up the module size. We can go for larger modules. We can go for higher wind loads, 160 mile per hour. So, down near the coast of Florida, we can go up to 70 PSF. So in the mountainous areas like we're talking about, Maine, Denver area, and also now utilizing ground screws.
Yeah, we're super excited. Absolutely, yeah.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for spending the time with us here.
Thanks for having us.
All right, thanks.
And That's a wrap.
All set?
Closes.
We're good? All right.
Let's redo the whole thing.
Let's
I forgot to
Was the
play.
Thanks.